Welcome and thanks for joining us for another episode of Code Girls on Air, a podcast exploring all things technology, female leadership, careers, education, and topics within the nonprofit sector. On this episode, we will be talking with Emma Anderson, a student in our advanced class with numerous achievements during her time in the program. So join Emma and me to hear more about her experience here at Code Girls United. Welcome, Emma. Thank you so much for joining us on Code Girls on Air today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Do you think you could start by just introducing yourself, saying your age and grade, and maybe when you started with Code Girls?
Yeah, my name is Emma Anderson. I've been with Code Girls since 2018, so that's 6 years now. And I'm going to be a junior at Stillwater Christian School, so I'm 17.
So how did you originally hear about Code Girls?
If I'm being honest, my mom just said, "Hey, do you want to do this?" And I was like, sure. It's at the college. That's kind of cool. You know.
Yeah, it was at FECC.
Yeah, when you're in fifth grade, it's like, ooh, the college? Cool, yay! Like, it's very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and I just became a part of it, and since then I've always been a part of it.
Nice. Were there any reasons you decided to join other than it was at the college?
I'd always been interested in technology, maybe not coding especially, but I've always been interested in stuff like that. So when my mom said, "Hey, you want to do it?" I was like, might as well try it, since we've always kind of been like, oh, you can always try it. If you don't like it, then just like stay out your commitment and then you can leave. So yeah.
When you stuck with it, so
I did.
This many years later. So do you think you could kind of just talk through the timeline and your journey with Code Girls?
Yeah, so my first year we were at the college, and it was the Northwest Regional App Challenge at the college, which again was so cool. And my first app was called Sitting Still Will Make You Ill.
Oh, yeah.
Which was basically just an app to help people who are sedentary or that they're just working at their desk all the time to get up and stay active and get those, kind of stand minutes in each hour, something like that.
How old would you have been at the time of that app?
I would have been 11. And yeah, that was our first app. And then our second app was actually all three of us together, and that was Drive Right. And that was so much fun. Ironic because I was 12 and I had no concept of driving yet.
Well, none of us had, right?
I mean, if I was 12, you would have been 14.
Yeah, no. We were getting close. Remember, all the questions that people asked us was, "You don't drive yet. How do you know what you're talking about?"
Yeah, just
we read through the driver's
the driver's manual. Yeah. It made driver's ed very simple.
Very simple. We had that thing almost memorized.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, so that was our second app. So that was 2019 into 2020. And obviously 2020 was kind of weird. Yeah. But I remember we did the video, since every year we do a pitch video for Technovation at the time, and then also for the app challenge as well. And I remember we were at my school, we were at Stillwater, and we were the 6 feet apart, and we were just like so far apart from each other. And it was so funny. And it was also so windy.
So windy. And you remember the sheep too?
Yeah, I remember the sheep.
The sheep kept buying.
And it was in the middle of when we were talking, and it was towards the end, and it was too loud to really cut it out. And especially at the time, audio technology for cutting stuff out was just, you sound like a robot.
Or at least stuff that you had access to.
Yeah. It was either you sound like a robot or you do it again. So yeah, with Drive Right, we won the Congressional App Challenge, which was really cool, especially when I'm in 6th grade. And since we didn't go in person at the time, it was over Zoom, and we had these little rooms that was we had Minnesota, all the teams in Minnesota, and then Montana, and then I think we had Nebraska or something kind of.
We had a few different ones.
And they were a little random. They weren't exactly,
it wasn't regional.
Close to us by any means. And I remember there was someone who was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to the University of Minnesota in the fall." And I remember I was in 6th grade, and I was like,
we were the only little ones.
Yeah. Cool. Have fun.
Yeah. Well, and the other funny thing, remember with the Drive Right, that was our first time we ever really got press, right? Just our team personally.
Yes. Code Girls before that had some newspaper things that were look at this program, sign your kids up. But it was the first time that we, as a team, had gotten press about an app that was kind of changing.
Right. Well, and it was
what was happening in the landscape.
Well, because we just did it because Jordana, the little girl, got hit by the bus, so that was a local issue.
Yeah, and our app was just kind of super relevant at the time, so it was kind of just, good press.
And then winning congressional, and then also the other thing that was a big deal was Technovation. We made semifinals.
Yes, Technovation at the time was such a big deal because it's a worldwide. There's apps from everywhere, and there's so many girls,
so many thousand girls worldwide.
So I remember Do you remember this? We got on their Facebook page, on Technovation's Facebook page. I don't remember. Yeah, I remember they put us on the Facebook page after one of the newspaper things.
Oh, was it the bus thing?
Yeah, and then it was right before the actual finals came out, and we were all just like, we're probably, because of this.
Because they did that, we're
probably not. But
yeah, I remember that now.
Semifinals is still such a big deal just because, again, it's so many people, so many apps.
Yeah.
It's really cool to know that you're making, it's impactful.
Right. Well, and it was cool. That was the first time getting interviewed, so. And we did it 3 times, so.
Yeah.
Because it didn't go well the first 2. Okay, so then after Drive Right, what was next?
Yeah, the next app after Drive Right was Budget Buddy.
Oh, that's right.
Right. So Budget Buddy was kind of it was a new app for all of us just because we had leveled in Technovation, we'd leveled into the senior competition, which meant which meant we were also in the old office too for the first time.
Behind Dairy Queen in the basement. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the first app that we created there. So it was just kind of the entire app, the entire process was just so new.
Right, and the year was kind of weird because we shifted over to our old home space.
And it was, so Budget Buddy was an app that helped teens and young adults kind of take control of their finances and budgeting and spending and all of that. And it was, it was kind of targeted to young adults, which is still such a kind of pressing issue today, like financial literacy. Yeah. And it was so new for all of us because we used extensions in MIT App Inventor for the first time, which was just
Isabel worked hard on that, like the circles,
which was just kind of new because typically with MIT App Inventor you're given the set of stuff that you can do, and from there, if you want to do anything else, you're gonna have to either find this crazy workaround or you're just not gonna do it.
Right.
And these crazy workarounds are very hard to
so involved.
Yeah, they're very involved. And props to Isabel because you spent many a time on the little circle progress bars that looked so good when they were done.
So cute.
They look so good. So yeah, and it was also new for me since I've always done the business plan sort of things. It's always been my favorite part, and I had to do
which we appreciate very much.
Thank you. Which that year we had to do a 5-year financial plan if we were to launch this as a business. Which is so crazy to do when you're in 7th grade.
My goodness.
And you're looking at it and you're like, I don't know how much a rent space would be if you had employees. I don't know how much a livable salary is. Like, be so for real. I don't know what's happening. But yeah, it was definitely one of those things that and obviously I still do it as well for every other business plan since then. So it's definitely a very cool starting point for me.
It is.
And I also learned there that Apple takes $99 a year for every app that's on the marketplace.
That's insane.
And that's one of the many reasons Apple is such a big business. Yeah. Is that literally, think about how many apps are on the App Store. $99 every year, just pumping out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and then we also pitched Budget Buddy. Was that the one we pitched to the Rotary Club too? With the financial plan?
Yes.
Early that one.
Yeah. So when we went to the Rotary Club, we talked about Code Girls as an organization.
That's right.
And we talked about the 2 apps that we'd made together.
Gotcha.
So we talked a lot about Drive Right and how impactful that was in our community. And we talked about Budget Buddy because it was pretty cool that little girls were doing a 5-year financial plan.
Yeah.
Which was, I forgot about Rotary. That was such an interesting experience.
We had to go so early in the morning. That's what I remember.
Yeah, it was
Mom's birthday. I had to have her drive me because I couldn't drive,
Yeah, it was at 6 o'clock.
Hey, Mom, you got to take me at 7 in the morning.
Yeah, it was at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock?
Yeah, because it's a 6 to 8 deal. 6 to 7:30 technically, but they always stay.
No, that was early.
But we're talking to people who are so involved in the flathead community and the business scene and just this sort of landscape we have here. And it was so cool to just kind of make ourselves known.
Yeah, it was. That was a really cool opportunity. So after Budget Buddy, and that didn't really win anything, but we learned a lot from it for sure.
Yeah, I would say even though we didn't learn anything. That's not true. Even though we didn't win anything with it, it was definitely one of the things that kind of stepped up our game in that sort.
For sure.
Because we just learned so much with MIT App Inventor. We were truly just pushing the limits that we could with it. Even more with Found the next year.
Right.
So yeah, we were just pushing those limits as far as they could go, and we were just
technically, and then also the business plan side.
Yeah, and we were just pushing the business plan to a point where if you present that to any group of people, as like any group of business people, that is still a very fundamental thing that they're going to be impressed by. And the fact, again, that that's being done by little girls, part of a little thing called Girls United, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay, so after Budget Buddy, then we went into Found, right?
Yeah. So Found is one of the apps that I'm most proud of, just because Found and DriveRight, in my opinion, just because they're some of the most impactful apps that we've ever done, of course, that maybe even Code Girls has ever done. So yeah, Found is an app that helps prevent human trafficking, especially in like Native American or Indigenous communities here in Montana. And the fundamental point of that is just to prevent human trafficking before it happens, and of course when it happens, to like file reports and just have people who are being aware of this issue.
Raise awareness. Since
I'd argue that human trafficking is not very, people don't talk about it like they talk about domestic violence, like they talk about other, again, very big pressing issues
swept under the rug.
And again, human trafficking is basically just the modern day slavery. And of course, when you're thinking about it, it's like, oh yeah, we don't have slavery. What are you talking about?
Right.
But fundamentally, that's human trafficking. You were being lured in and you were doing things without being paid or compensated for it that you fundamentally do not want to do.
Right.
So yeah. And there are a bunch of different things in the app. The thing that I was most working on in the app was the Spark. So I love explaining it. It's basically like a pseudo Instagram, and the homepage has like, you have friends on it, you have these posts, they're just this kind of a story, and you get this random DM like everybody has had that is like, oh, I think we have tons of mutual friends. I think I know you. Like, do you wanna hang out? And it's like, well, we have these mutual friends. Well, maybe I just should, right? And then from there, because human trafficking isn't
social. Yeah,
exactly. Human trafficking isn't just people are just going to nab you off the street. Like, that's really not happening.
It's all unheard of now.
It's the people who
it still happens, but
yeah, for sure. And it's the people who you are most close with, or the people who know the people you're closest to,
right?
That are really that are really gonna lure you in because they gain that trust. Because that's the biggest thing, especially with young people, especially with young girls, which is easily the biggest demographic. It's building that trust and being like, oh, like I'm having a hard time with my family, and the person just being like, oh yeah, I'm here for you. Like, you can come to this place whenever you need.
Yeah, come stay
here. That happens so much. Like, we watched so many documentaries, horrible documentaries. Oh my goodness,
I remember that. Yeah,
that we would need to like decompress after.
Yeah, and
it was just, again, that fundamental storyline is just someone who you trust, just taking advantage of that trust and luring you in, and then you're gone. That's it. And from there, once you're human trafficked, it is very, very hard to get out, to come back to life, normal life. So,
well, so we did a ton of research on the topic. I remember eating a lot of chocolate afterwards because we had to.
Those Costco
chocolates, yeah. Well, then we also talked with Nick McKinley, who's with Deliver Fund.
Yes. In school, we had a little Deliver Fund thing that was
really?
Yeah, I only kind of vaguely remember it, but it was basically just like, don't trust weird people on the internet. Stay safe, be aware.
Right.
That was like the fundamentals. And I remember after that, I was like, I feel like this is common sense. But in hindsight, I totally understand why this is a problem. Right. Because again, it's preying on your humanity. It's preying on your trust. So yeah, and talking with Nick McKinley, he definitely helped us take the app in a direction that needed to.
Right.
Since at first we were talking about like, oh, we could do like self-defense. Right. And he was kind of fundamentally like, in human trafficking, self-defense is not going to be what saves you. It's going to be not getting yourself in the position
in the first place.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that was really eye-opening.
Yeah.
No. Okay, so then with Found, that's what we went to DC with, right?
Correct. Yes. That was, again, such a cool experience that I'm so thankful to Code Girls for having. And we went to DC because of Found, since we won the Congressional App Challenge. I like to say kind of for reals. We run it for reals this time because
for reals. Yeah.
Sure. And obviously, again, on paper, we've won it twice now.
Right.
But it was, again, Zoom is just never going to be the same. You're not breathing in DC air. You're not breathing in the swamp air.
Right. Well, and the other thing is we didn't meet any legislators.
Exactly.
But we got a call from June Forte, but we had
Yeah, so when we went to DC, we had a ton of different tours, and we got some great one-on-one time with every single representative. Mm-hmm. So at the time, we had 2 senators, and we'd just gotten 2 House representatives. Mm-hmm. So the 2 senators at the time were John Tester and Steve Daines, mm-hmm. and the 2 House representatives were, for our district, it was Ryan Zinke, and for the Eastern District, it was Matt Rosendale.
Right.
At the time, when we won, we only had 1 House representative.
Oh,
so
that's right.
Matt Rosendale, who was the one who kind of championed us through this whole process.
Right.
But we got great talks, great one-on-one time with them and like their chief of staff, all of that. And we had we had many Capitol tours
That's right.
We had many Capitol tours that were, all of them were, they always touched on something a little different. That was so cool and obviously fun. Like, if you were to just go there on a tour, you wouldn't get all of this information.
We did Montana Coffee, which is where we met all the legislators at the same time. And then we took the little underground subway too.
So if we were to kind of break down what happened, is that we got there, well, the first day was basically all Congressional App Challenge. So in the evening
lots
we had
of panels, seminars.
Yes, in the evening of the first day we had a panel that I really enjoyed. It was talking about security and
that's right, that was that cybersecurity.
Yeah, I was talking about cybersecurity really cool. In this era of privacy law and all of that. That's one of the things I'm most interested in. So I thought it was so interesting, and I talked with the lady afterward, and it was so fun for me. And then the second day was basically all Congressional App Challenge, where you walk around. It's kind of like a science fair. Mm-hmm. You walk around to the Eastern District, so it's like Virginia. I remember all of the ones that are kind of on the east side we went to, and we had these little punch cards that we'd stamp.
Oh, that's right, because once you got so many stamps, you won like a keychain or something, right?
It was something like that. And it was just so cool seeing what other people are doing. Mm-hmm. I remember we met with these other group of, I think, 4 girls who were also part of Technovation.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and I remember
they were the only other girl team.
Yeah, I remember they were editing one of their team members was editing their Technovation video.
That's right.
And I remember
Technovation had all the different criteria.
Yeah, Technovation was very intensive, and I remember we had to finish it the week early, so we were like churning it out. But yeah, so that was, and it was just so eye-opening to be like, well, boy team, the girl team, look at you, boy team, the rest.
Right.
So I think that's the great part of Code Girls United, is that it's getting girls involved in a way that they don't in schools, they don't in clubs, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Speaking of boys, do you remember that one boy that was next to us with the weather app?
North Dakota. I remember I talked with his dad, and he was very impressed by the business plan.
Yeah.
He gave me tons and tons of tips.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the thing. When when we were presenting our thing, again, it's kind of science fairy, so sometimes you'll have like 2 people at your booth, so that you can't just like give your entire presentation. Like, that's clearly not the point. So I remember
it was very conversational.
Mm-hmm. I remember, you guys would talk about coding and app things. Then you'd hand them off to me, and I'd talk about the business plan. And boy, I had so many dads, all of them dads, that are just like, oh, this is really great. Did you account for this, and this about the economy? Right. I'm like, I really didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely, and talking with all of these people was definitely so fun for me, because again, they were legitimately very invested in this business plan. They were reading it, kind of like skimming it, but they're basically top to bottom.
It's 10 pages.
I mean, it was exactly 10 pages. It was pushing on the tightrope. Yep.
Well, and then the other thing, people took it home, right? Didn't they ask to keep it?
We had, I think, 6 copies that we just brought down, and we came back with 2. Yeah. So that was, and again, so many dads.
And remember the booth, we had test phones, stickers, business plans, and then also this trifold board.
Yes. Again, it's very science fair in the way that you present it. And I remember down there, I think maybe what was contributing to the amount of dads that I talked to was the fact that it got locked down.
Oh, right.
So apparently there was this bomb threat, which
a suspicious package.
Yes, which I broadly assume bomb threat. That apparently is not. It happens to the Capitol all the time.
Yeah, frequently.
Building. Right. But apparently, people, like, if people wanted to leave, they could, but people couldn't come in.
Right.
So all of the parents were putting in their due diligence, and they were going around to everybody.
Right. Because that's when our representative was supposed to come see us, and then no one could get into the Capitol, so
Yeah, Rosendale was never able to make it then, but we talked to him the day later.
Right, we talked to
Montana Coffee. Yeah. But yeah, I was very glad that we got to talk and go around to everybody before this happened. I was a little sad that people couldn't come to ours, but at the same time, I feel like we still were. It was still a great experience. We were still talking. We were still presenting. We still talked to plenty of the other people who just were still there and they didn't decide to leave.
Right.
So
yeah.
So
while we were in DC, we also found out about the MIT App Inventor. There was like what was it?
It was the same day as the panels, and it was, again, they were basically businesses and a science fair style thing, where it was like there was a group that was talking about like boys coding, a group talking about girls coding. Our code girls came there.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was Amazon there, was Google there. Remember, it was like some intern. I'm not sure what it was, but
booth that you and I went up to, and we were talking with them, and we were just making our rounds, right? We didn't know what each booth was.
The boy code one.
Yeah. They're like, we teach young men of color. And we're like, okay, we are
not that demographic. No. But thanks for...
They gave us a sticker, right?
They did.
Or a bracelet, something.
They gave us, I think it was like a little like brochure and it had a little sticker in it.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
But that was funny.
It was,
they pitched
we
the whole thing
we
to
are
us.
not that demographic.
Right.
But yeah.
And then they're like, tell your friends. And we're like, we're in the northwestern corner of Montana.
I want to say they were from like upstate New York or something.
I think they were.
Like Buffalo.
Uh-huh.
Something
that
like
sounds right.
And yeah, not our demographic.
No.
Good talk.
Good talk.
But yeah, there was a person representing MIT App Inventor who was just kind of talking about what their platform does and how they teach people to code.
Right, because we had coded through MIT App Inventor.
Yes, we coded. Well, my first app was coded through MIT App Inventor, like all of them were at the time. Our Drive Right, Budget Buddy, Found was really pushing the borders.
Right,
like we had tons and tons of just code and excess code that we technically didn't need, but it made a button work or something.
Right,
that was just like go to screen 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and then we linked the Firebase to it too, which
is
it's a cloud database. Basically.
Yeah, Firebase again it's pushing the limits of what MIT App Inventor can do. Firebase is again a cloud database sponsored by Google that you just push tokens and tickets in and then you pull them out. But again, it's MIT App Inventor. It's meant for not this like very intensive work that we were doing at the time. So anywho, we talked to the lady and she was like, oh, like, that's so cool. And we kind of talked to her about what Found was. And she was like, that is, like, so cool.
Right.
Da-da-da. And she told us about this MIT App Inventor Challenger.
App of the season?
App of the season. You're right. And we were like, oh that's kind of cool.
And it was all about helping your community.
It was very community focused. All of the things that we do at Code Girls already. And it was like, something that impacts your community, solving a problem. That was coded, again, in MIT App Inventor. Right. So, yeah, and we submitted it. I can't remember much about the submission process other than we took
it wasn't bad.
We took the Technovation video, and I just remember I cut stuff of it.
Right, just like snipped it together.
And we submitted it, and we won first place.
Right.
And we were a little unaware until it was everywhere.
Right.
Facebook, Instagram.
Our picture was plastered.
Anywhere MIT App Inventor was, we were. Yeah, we might have even been on that Learn page.
I think we were. Yeah. They just put our picture everywhere, and that's how we first found out about it.
And it was also the first App of the Season challenge. So we were the inaugural. Yeah, we were the inaugural winners.
Well, and we were the only all-girl team too.
Yeah, it was us. It was a group of school. It was like a school coding program, and I think it was mostly boys in that.
Right.
I think it was like a group of 4.
Yeah,
for second, one girl or something. And then I can't remember third place, if I'm being honest.
I can't either.
But yeah, again, it was the first inaugural winner. It was a great kind of kickoff, in my opinion. We were a great kickoff
to
the
way
program.
To wrap up DC.
So, yeah. And it was kind of just that like cherry on top for a very good experience. Because again, we had Montana Coffee was so cool since we talked to everybody. We had the chief of staff of representatives and senators kind of lead us around the Capitol, which
that was cool.
Like I said, so cool. Everyone touched on something
so
different.
Informative.
So
yeah. So then after Found, we did our Fish, Wildlife, and Parks app, right?
Yeah. So we're still kind of in the process of making that up.
Very much in the process.
Yeah. So the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks app, we wanted to do something that was kind of about the outdoors, getting kids outdoors, and we'd reached.
we reached out to Fish, Wildlife, and Parks because we didn't know.
We'd reached out and just been like, hey, are you interested in just having a call just to kind of talk about what you might want in an app like this? And we talked to
Dylan Tabish.
Dylan Tabish, who's like the kind of the press person, education person. And he was like very interested. And he was very excited because he was already part of this Western Leadership Conservation Program, which is basically people from every fish, wildlife, and parks and / or like ducks.org, which is again a conservation version of. And this program was basically trying to figure out how to get kids outdoors. That was kind of their fundamental thing. Since again, in this era of technology, people are spending less and less time outdoors. What a shock. So and their big idea was, we should do an app that helps gets kids engaged. It's still technology, but it's like it's technology in a good and responsible way and that sort. And they had spent 6 months on it. They didn't get very far. So we were on many calls with them. Many being just talked about how what they want to see in this app and how they want it to work, and basically anything that they wanted, how we should put that in. So they came up with this idea that's going to be like a this or that pick system that spits out like, do you want to... Once a day. Yeah, once a day you'll have it this or that. So you can click on the category if you want to do it in the park, in the forest, in your backyard, in the water. And it will be like, if you hit water, for example, it will be like, go swimming in a lake or go kayaking. And you pick one, you post a picture about it, and that other people, your friends, can see, and then that's your streak, which is kind of something separate. So they wanted it so that it's not going to be an app that you just use once and you're done. So the streak idea is just so that keeps people using it, keeps people engaged.
Daily. Once a day. Take a picture while you did it. Share it with your friends.
Exactly. And that's what they came up with, and that's what we're working on now. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
So those are that's the rundown of our apps that we've made together.
Yes.
So then you were also teaching this past year, correct?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
I had a lot of fun teaching. I'm admittedly not the best an MIT app inventor. I never really had to. You guys are such good coders. I never had to be that involved in it, which I always preferred. Right.
But you always took over the business plan and did that.
Yeah, my favorite part of Code Girls, ironically, is the business plan and presentations.
No, I think that's great.
So, and I would say, kind of as a side note, Code Girls is not all about coding. Fundamentally, it is not. It definitely teaches the basics about how to tell a computer what you want it to do for you. It's not all about coding.
There's so many business.
The business plan is great. The presentation and just being social in environments that you're not comfortable with, great. Whoever's listening, I highly encourage you to sign your kid up. If they don't like it, completely fine. But it's more, even if they're not that interested in technology, there's so many other skills. It's such a get out of your box and do sort of situation, which in my opinion, every kid should have a program, a situation that makes them do that on a regular basis, because the more you do it, the less out of the box it feels. Anywho, so teaching was just so fun for me because I got to see their presentation skills grow. I got to see their business plan skills basically grow, since, obviously these girls are in 4th to 5th grade. They're not going to be that intensive with it, but it's still great to see kind of the line of thought from being like, oh yeah, we have a problem. Here's how we're solving it, and here's what that solution does. Right. And from there, Code Girls has a competitive analysis and a market research. And a market research portion, which is basically just what apps are already on the market that are our competitors. Right. And the market research is what do people want. So
yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much for telling us all about your past with Code Girls and what you've been up to. So what are your future goals? What do you want to do next?
Yeah, I am so interested in so many different things, but right now I'm really interested in law, specifically in that kind of privacy technology law. Right. Going back to the DC panel. I am so interested in that because, again, in this new era of AI and multimodal, all of that, the lines for what privacy is are going to be more and more blurred, and until we fundamentally get ahead of that curve, which maybe that's not even the way to approach it, but until we do that, privacy is going to look more different and maybe debatably worse the farther we go. So that is like my favorite part of kind of technology right now, technology news, is just all of these things that are like, well, that's bad. Microsoft recall, that's weird. But how do we use these things that we've created that ultimately do help us out as humans? They help us out, but also take away that humanity part of who we are.
Yeah.
So
that's what you want to tackle in the future.
Exactly. I think that's just, it's so interesting to me. So.
Oh, that's great. So what advice would you give to other little girls who are thinking about joining?
Like I already said earlier, do it. It's more than coding. I thought technology was always interesting. I didn't really prefer or have an opinion about coding itself when I was younger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, you have little school things, but they're kind of boring.
It's not the same thing as.
Yeah, and I encourage you to do it. If you don't like it, that's completely fine. But in my opinion, you need to do things that get you out of your box a little bit, because the more you do them, the more of a well-rounded person you will be.
Right.
So,
especially going into a professional field too.
Exactly. And again, I think it's setting you up for success, not only in setting yourself up for high school, it's also setting yourself up for college, for the rest of your life. Whatever career you do, even if it's not remotely related to tech, you're still going to have to do presentations, write things out, talk to people who you don't know in these little like mixers that are just a little weird.
Yeah.
That's the point. And Code Girls is great about just giving those experiences to
working on a team.
Exactly. Just again, like the fundamental team skills, being like, we have contradicting ideas. How do we go from there?
Right.
So
yeah. Well, thank you so much. Any last closing thoughts before we?
No. Awesome. This was a lot of fun. Just talking about Code Girls.
Yeah.
Putting all my thoughts on one podcast.
Yes. Thank you so much. This was a blast. Should do this again. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Next week on Code Girls on Air.
So it was the 70s, mid-70s, and I graduated with my degree in computer science, which was very rare, first of all, to have that degree.
Yeah, just in general, right?
Right. I didn't even know it was offered until I got to college and took my first computer class. I wanted to keep going. I was, there was like 2 women in our graduating class of a big school. And so I got a job and naively didn't understand there was a difference between men and women in the workplace. But so it was hard. There was a lot of prejudices.